Oh, wait, that's
We're back.
you never timed that right. Hey, we're back. We are
I should
back.
give you a countdown.
Yeah, we should do a countdown. Anyway, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Devin?
I'm doing well. It's been pretty hectic. It's been not gonna lie. Oops, it's been pretty hectic lately. Trying to get my microphone situated. But it's been fun. I've been doing quite a bit of traveling. I think I just got back from a trip. I was three different places. Well, not at the same time, obviously, back to back to back, which can be taxing, but a lot of fun. Had a chance to attend two conferences. Got to do some speaking. That's kind of in my job description, is to give presentations. What about
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah. Well, it's been sort of business as usual here, planning some fun things for the fall, getting back into workshops. So, also
Yes.
speaking and some speaking
Speaking, yes.
engagements as well. So, yeah, it's kind of a timely topic for what we're going to be talking about today.
Yes, because I think when we talk about speaking, whether it be workshop, on a podcast, giving presentations, giving speeches, um, there's always you always hear that's one of the greatest fears that many people have, is this fear of public speaking. And so I'll ask you this question: so do you get nervous when you have to speak?
I don't. I get excited.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I similarly, I have probably the most fun when I'm speaking. It's just something I just enjoy doing. It's something, I'm kind of feeding off of the energy in the audience, and I think it's a lot of fun. But certainly, when I first started, there were, the nerves, the jitters. And so today what we want to talk about is just kind of some quick tips on how to overcome that fear of public speaking. What is it that makes you afraid? What are different things that you can do to remind yourself of, so that when you go through this experience, it's not this horrifying thing that you're dreading, because I know that a lot of people do dread that, and it's something that it's on their mind as they're preparing for a presentation, and they can't really take a deep breath. They can't take they can't exhale until they're finally finished. And so
Right.
just want to maybe just talk through a couple of things that I've learned over the years, and maybe we can just have a quick chat about that, if
I'd
that
love to.
works. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, where do we start? I guess, hold on, I need to move this. Something happened to my keyboard. Okay. So, I'm floating. If you're listening to this on a podcast and not a video, none of this is makes any sense to you, that my camera is floating. Okay, so where do we start? So first off, um, when it comes to speaking, I guess the question is, what is this fear? What is the origin of this fear? What are you afraid of? And I think for many people, it's kind of, they're afraid they're going to make a mistake. They're afraid that they're going to look bad in front of other people, or they're going to be asked questions that they can't answer. And in their mind, they sort of get this sense that they're going to be exposed for, as a fraud, or that you're not, not someone who should be addressing this body. And so I think one of the first things you always have to do is come with the mindset of, there's a reason why you're speaking. Maybe you got invited to speak at a conference. Maybe you're speaking in front of your employees, or you're speaking in front of customers. There's a reason why you're speaking, and that's because someone has put you in a position where you're deemed an authority on a subject. They are there to listen to you, and so it's always important, I think, to remind ourselves that we, when we're in these situations, we're there because we have information to give. We have information that we are positioned to share. So I think that's kind of the very first step is, don't overwhelm yourself. Don't doubt yourself that you're not good enough to be speaking, that you're not, not the expert that you're purported to be. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have spoken with other people who have had really bad experiences in the past
Okay.
where they have been criticized or really not supported early on in their career, especially. And it has been a hard learning experience for
Yeah.
them. And so it makes coming back to speak for whatever reason, even if it's a presentation that they really feel they want to give for a big project or something, they absolutely dread it based on what they've been through
Yeah.
in the past. And that's really hard to kind of have to desensitize. We have to have courage, and we have to get out of our comfort zone for sure with
Yeah.
that. So yeah, finding out, identifying where some
Mhm.
of the fear is coming from, that I think just normalizes it for us.
Sure, sure. And you brought up a good point in terms of, maybe they had a bad experience, when they were younger or earlier in their career. And I kind of think back. So let me ask you a question. So when did you start like speaking or having to, when did you start speaking, and then when did you get comfortable with it?
Well, I started speaking, and I started presenting in front of people
Mhm.
in high school age, if
Okay.
not before, because of course you have your middle school presentations and your high school presentations. But for me, one of the very first career that I ever had was acting and modeling and promotional sales.
Yeah.
So I was kind of trained to be in front of people and to share information since I was 15 years old, before I could drive.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So so you got an early start. I had an early start as well. I started, you talk about kind of grade school presentations. And that was one of the things that we were, we had to do. We had to go up in front of the class and do something. And there was one class, I don't remember when, I want to say it was probably around fifth or sixth grade.
Yeah.
So I went to a K through 8 school. So right around fifth or sixth grade is everyone in class had to pick something, pick a speech, and they had to deliver it. And it really was an exercise, more so an exercise in memorization than anything else, because we didn't, obviously you had to overcome kind of the fear you felt. And, and when you're that age, there are so many things that can go wrong that can ruin your
Your whole
junior high
life.
experience. When you've got classmates who can, they can be terrible at it. But anyway, so I remember I picked I Have a Dream, Martin Luther King Jr.,
Mhm.
and I memorized it. And I can still recite, I think, at least half of it, that speech. And it's just it's such a momentous speech, such an important speech. And so I I did it hundreds of times, probably in front of a mirror. And then I gave it, and it was sort of this sigh of relief that it was over. And then my teacher came up to me and said, "Wow, you did such a good job. We'd like you to do that in front of the whole school for the talent show." And I thought, who wants to listen to this? Because, a talent show, it's people singing, dancing, playing piano. And then there's this guy who's just going up and giving a speech. Anyway, it was, it was another thing where I had to kind of get myself together so I can do that. And so I've kind of learned over the years just to kind of embrace that. It's actually, I asked you before if you get nervous when you speak, and I don't really get nervous, but I actually sort of embrace that nervous energy that you get, because I
Mhm.
think it's a signal, it's telling of how important this event is. It's one thing if you go in front of people and you don't care and there's nothing at stake, and certainly you're not going to feel any sort of anxiety or anything. But when you're in front of a large body, when you're making a pitch, doing a presentation to win projects, I think it's natural to feel that sort of nervous energy. And I just embrace that and I feed off of that. So if you feel nervous, kind of the first thing is, if you feel nervous, that's okay. It's natural. You just need to kind of be able to understand why you feel that nervous energy and be able to get through that. Okay, so again, today we're going to be talking about some tips on how to overcome that fear of speaking. There are, we could do episodes upon episodes on how to give impactful presentations. We're not going to do that today. We just want to focus on what are some of the things you can do to overcome that nervous energy that you have when you have to give a presentation. And the first thing, and this is going to sound just, basic, is preparation. Just make sure you're prepared. Know your material. Again, you're being asked to speak on a subject, on a topic, or to present, something. You want to make sure that you know that topic inside and out. And if you're nervous because you might get exposed for not knowing your material, well, that's sort of on you because you need to know your material. That is kind of the basis. So know your material. I talked before about, with that speech, how I just memorized it. Do you memorize what you're going to say?
I have in the past when I was in high school, because I needed to for the performances that we would be giving. It was just
Sure.
exactly like you said, you memorize it, you give it, you wait for the feedback. But now I do not memorize what I
Yeah.
have to say because I have found that I have a specific style of preparing for the presentations that I'm giving and then actually executing and giving the presentation in front of people. And to me, it's like I don't like when people are super monotone, super
Yeah.
robotic. You can tell that they even some podcasts, you can tell that they are reading off of a script.
You can very much tell we are not reading off a
We
script.
have
We
no
don't even
script.
know what we're going to talk about. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, so now I like to go off the cuff, but I will say I do not speak about something unless I feel like I'm an expert in the material. And so
Yes.
I can talk off the cuff. It's like if somebody said, you got 15 minutes to talk in front of these 100 people, go up there and figure it out. I'd be able to do that. And some people are terrified of that. And
Yeah.
so I like what you said because it does come back to the preparation.
Yeah, and if you're prepared, then you don't have to script it out because as long as you know in your head kind of an outline of what your presentation is going to cover or what are the three key points you want to make, as long as you have that in your head and you're able to kind of systematically go through that and get to the end, then you don't need to memorize it. I think that one of the challenges is if you're nervous and don't want to say the wrong thing, so you script it out and then you memorize a script. The problem with that is if one little thing can throw you off.
Yeah.
And you've seen it before where someone is they're in kind of mid sentence and then they lose it and now they have to replay the memorized script in their head in order to get back on track. And you don't want that. You want to be able to kind of roll with it. And so as I'm saying this, there are times when I'll script the open. So kind of what my opening remarks are just to make sure I've got a strong start. And then once I've got it, then I take that momentum and I'm able to go through it. So there are times when I will admit I do script just the open, just maybe the first couple of sentences just so I can get the introduction down. But now it's pretty much not. So, okay. So preparation is a lot of things. Preparation is knowing your material. It's not only knowing your material, but it's knowing your audience. You have to understand who, get to the best of your ability, figure out, what is their mindset? How do you anticipate that they're going to react to what you're going to say? What are potential questions that they're going to be asking? What are some of the things that they're going to challenge you on? And so you have to be prepared so that when those questions do come up, then you're able to answer. And if you can't answer, it's okay to say you don't know and you'll come back. But understanding your audience is really, really key. I've seen so many presenters who they may have, say, a slide deck, a sales pitch, if you will, that's geared towards a value proposition that would be, say, attractive to a building owner or a contractor. Well, you're not going to give that same presentation or you're not going to frame the conversation similarly if you're talking to engineers or facility people. So understand your audience and know that you're having a two-way conversation. And that will really help kind of ease the nerves because it becomes a conversation. It's not you just standing in front of them, reading off a script or reciting or saying what you want to say. It's having this conversation, and that can really help. So the other thing it comes when I think of being prepared is that's kind of the mental aspect of it, right? Is the physical aspect. So being prepared means you have to have, you have to have the right mindset, but you're also physically, you need to be ready. You need to be ready. And so that means making sure you have enough rest. Don't stay up late the night before practicing your presentation. Don't, wear yourself out. Make sure that you're rested. Make sure that you're not starving. I know some
Mhm.
people will say, oh, I don't want to eat because I'll get sick. No, eat, make sure, because the last thing you want to do is to get, the jitters while you're up there. And so one of the things just that I took away, when I was very early on in my career, I was at a meeting, and the meeting it was kind of a workshop on how to give sales presentations. And it was not from it was a sales perspective, but it was from an engineering perspective on how to win projects. So how to give projects. And so they hired this wonderful woman who came up, and she talked about just little tips about presentations. But one of the things that I really take away is before, she said, when you get up there, there's a tendency to feel, to want to retract, especially if you're nervous. You want to kind of retract, and you kind of seem a little more rigid that you would be more naturally. And so one of the things she said is, in order to combat that, is you really just have to get the blood moving before every presentation. Get yourself excited both mentally and physically. And so what she said is, before a group gives a presentation, they all go in the parking lot and they get in a circle and they do like jumping jacks together. And it's a way, again, to kind of get that blood pumping. And I thought about that, and I don't, I'm not usually presenting with a big group of people, but what I find myself doing, and to this day I do this, is before I'm ready to present, I go to the restroom and I just jump up and down.
Nice.
I don't know if you've ever seen me do that. Well, it probably wouldn't be in the men's room, but
I
I
don't
would jump up
usually
and
hang out there.
but I do that because it really it helps me get just really super excited about getting ready to present, and it gets the blood moving. So
Mhm.
again, be prepared both mentally, physically. That's kind of my first thing. Now the other thing is, does that work?
Yeah, that works. I was gonna say, you gotta make sure that the energy is right.
Yes. That's a great point. Yeah, you've got to match energy, but also I think, it's incumbent on the presenter to inject a level of energy, set that level of expectation, so you get the audience so that they relax a little, they're comfortable. You make them smile, you make them laugh. No one wants to be in that, that 1 hour presentation where the presenter is just reading PowerPoint slides to the audience. Everyone can read. So
Right.
you want to be able to engage with them, and you can't do that unless you're both mentally and physically prepared. All right.
Mhm.
So that was the first one, being prepared. The second one is, these are all just really simple things to overcome your fear. There's a tendency when you're afraid, um, your body language shows it. You're timid or you're nervous, and you kind of almost have to force yourself, smile, right? Smile, and actually for me, I know sometimes I have to consciously remind myself, smile, be open, be engaged. You want to be able to present with confidence.
Mhm.
Again, that comes with being prepared, but understand that body language is really, really important. Going back to that one, that I talked to you about, that woman who gave the workshop. She said that oftentimes when you present, you retract. And so there's a tendency, if you're nervous, you can sit behind the podium, and just read. And she said, if you ever make a motion, she said, her quote was, big motions. So you
Mhm.
make these big motions, and because naturally you're going to scale it back a little bit if you're nervous. And so you purposely have these big motions. The other thing is be comfortable with yourself. You're normally, like, if we were having a conversation, I wouldn't just be sitting, behind a podium or in a chair or something. We're naturally, we use gestures, we use hand motions, we walk around. I tend to not like being behind a podium because I want to walk around. Because it's natural, and that's what you want to do. You want to feel natural. You want to feel comfortable. I was in another workshop. I go to a lot of workshops. I was at another workshop. This was something that my employer at work, they wanted to make sure everyone could present well, and so they hired another consultant, and they made a point of saying, you want to make sure that you walk around. And they told this, and I'll never forget, there was one of my coworkers, he would say something and then he would walk to another part of the front. He would say something else and he'd walk to the next part, say something. And it seemed, it was off. And so again, it's not walking for the point of walking. It's walking because I'm comfortable. I feel more comfortable when able to walk, especially if you're able to walk, depending on your setting, into the audience. You can talk to them and engage with them. So that's a thing. Be comfortable, maintain eye contact. Again, I sort of feed off the energy of the audience. And so I need to kind of see the eye contact. Sometimes you hear this advice. They say, oh, don't look at anyone in the eye. Just look above their head. That's terrible. Do you do that? You want to look at people's eyes. Yeah. You want to see them smile. You want to see them react, because you can gauge, as they're, reacting to what you're saying. It'll help you decide, oh, I need to spend more time with that, or, oh, that was a touchy subject. Let's get out of that one. So it really helps you understand the direction, whether or not you're getting buy-in from your audience, to a point where it'll really help you drive the conversation in the right direction. So I think making eye contact is huge. So I'm going off track here, but, we talked about how, don't look at someone in the eyes, look at their heads, above their heads. Another tip you often hear is, imagine everyone is in their underwear.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
I think everyone has heard that. That is so prevalent.
What?
And I'm like, the first time I heard that, I was like, how does that help me? And I guess the advice, I think, comes from, if you picture everyone in their underwear, then you're picturing them in an embarrassing situation. Yeah. And then it's supposed to make you more comfortable. And I'm like, this is cringe all around. Yeah. I want no part in this.
Yeah. Not getting into it, but I don't know that picturing other people in their underwear, if that's going to help you with your presentation, because I think you're right to that point, is that it's all about positioning. It's, they become, in your mind at least, they're more vulnerable, and you have assumed a place, assuming you're not in your underwear, you have assumed a place of higher, power. So it gives you, it sort of gives you that confidence, that fake confidence, that you can present. But the reality is again, going back to that preparation, you're there as the authority, own that confidence when you're ready to speak. And so don't do that. Well, I guess if it works for you, do it, but I don't see how it could. Okay. So number 3 is connect with your audience through humor. If you can make your audience laugh at least once or twice, then it's going to be memorable, and it really helps build this connection between you and the audience. So you want to be a little careful when you aim for humor. Humor is something that, of course, it's subjective. It varies. Some people are going to think you're hilarious. Other people are just not going to get you at all. And so you want to avoid things that, like, jokes that are polarizing. And jokes in general, they're rare. It's unless you really know your audience and you know that a certain joke is going to resonate with them and it sets the stage for the message that you want to deliver, then I would if that works, then fine. I've known speakers who will start with a joke just for the sake of telling a joke, just to kind of ease the tension. And if it doesn't connect to what your message is, then it sort of feels kind of fake.
Mm-hmm.
And worse yet, if it's not funny, then it's terrible. And so when I say connect with humor, is when I'm presenting, I like to engage the audience, and basically the easiest way is through deprecating. See, I just did it there. So different ways to, again, we talk about positioning and how when you look at them in their underwear, you're trying to position yourself higher. When you're doing this, you're actually positioning yourself lower. And it helps, it basically, what you're saying is, hey, listen, I'm not perfect, but I want to, let's talk about this. And maybe it sort of makes the audience feel like they're in a higher position. So it makes you more likable. It makes them more open to what you're going to say. So self-deprecating humor. And it's easy. I can make fun of myself all day long.
I think for me, I like to, I'm sure I probably have some level of self-deprecating humor. But I think for me, I like to kind of infuse it into something relatable, and
Yeah.
depending on the audience, I mean, you certainly have to know the audience, and so some things are going to be completely relatable for them. And
Mm-hmm.
if there's a funny story that has happened to me personally, or I can relay, then I think that helps too. And just not only breaking up the tension that there might be, but if you're 45 minutes into some sort of, speaking engagement with a group of people, then it's not really maybe tension, but just making connections throughout as
Yeah.
you go. So being really connected to that audience, because we don't want to be just talking at people. That's
Exactly.
not my that's not my way of doing things. I like to have more of a, like you said, make that eye contact, make those connections, see how the audience is doing, and do we need to move through something or spend more time properly explaining so that the concept gets well received.
Yeah, exactly. So humor, and you mentioned something just now, is you like to weave kind of personal stories in. And again, that's another way to really engage with the audience. And as you're telling, those personal stories, then it helps kind of ease that, any anxiety you might feel, because it's like you're sitting with a group of friends just telling a story. And if you can make the story connect to what you're talking about, then that really goes a long way. So again, I'm trying to focus just on things that kind of ease that tension, make you more comfortable speaking. Kind of the last thing I want to touch on is just make sure, you keep your emotions in check. And the reason I say that is because sometimes if you're nervous and you're presenting on a particular topic, and let's say there's someone in the audience who's aggressively challenging you, there's a tendency, kind of that fight or flight mentality, that you're going to push back. And I think it's almost natural that if someone is challenging you and perhaps, making you look bad, or in front of everyone else, that there's a tendency to want to push back hard. And don't do that. And I think the reason why is, if you want to make sure that compose, remain composed, understand you have to assess, why is this person asking this question? Because I've had it happen in the past where I've had, competitors in the audience ask questions in a specific way to try to make me look bad. And so you have to just address it in such a way that you don't want to look like you're defensive. You don't want to be defensive, because that does show that it shows that you don't have that confidence. You want to make sure that you respond in such a way that you have control, you have command of the presentation. And if they come with the question, always, that's a great question, but you're asking about this and this and this. What we want to focus on is, this and this and this, that and that and that, or whatnot. So whatever the situation is if you feel like it's getting aggressive, or if someone is challenging you and saying that, you don't know, they're challenging your authority on a topic, you just want to kind of calmly stay, maintain your ground and stay focused on what you're trying to relay. A lot of people, as I mentioned before, that they're afraid. That's what's driving a lot of this anxiety, this fear, is that they're going to be exposed. And so the last thing you want to do is react in such a way that kind of betrays the fact that you are getting exposed, right? And so you want to just maintain that calmness.
And
So,
I think that this goes back to what you had said in the very beginning, which was, if you're the one who's speaking, you were given this opportunity. And so I think in those instances where we might be feeling pressured to defend our point or to go into, because I know sometimes questions will come up and you're like, this is a very nuanced topic. This answering that fully would take another hour. We don't have that time.
yeah,
So I think it's just kind of coming back and being able to realize this is your opportunity. You're here for a reason. You're giving this information for a reason. So you need to maintain control as best you can. And at the end of the day, if there's somebody who just doesn't get it or agree with you for whatever reason, it's just, wow, that's a very insightful comment.
yeah. Yeah, and I think, again, just to kind of wrap things up, sometimes we approach presentations with this sort of us versus them mentality, that you're the presenter, they're the audience, and you're scared, or you're nervous, you're afraid because what the audience, they may not like what you're saying or such. You don't want to have that mindset. You want to have this mindset, because I'll tell you this, if you're in the audience, we've all been there, right? We've been in that position where we're in the audience and there is someone at the front and they are struggling. It's bad for everyone. We all want you to succeed.
Yeah.
We want you to deliver a good presentation. And so have that mindset that the audience is not against you, generally speaking. Sometimes they are.
You're just being thrown to the wolves.
But most of the time they are there. They chose to be there, probably, because they want to hear from you. They want to hear what you have to say. And so have that mindset. Do your jumping jacks in the beginning. Be prepared. Make sure that you're able to really engage and approach it like it's a conversation and not you're reading to them. So I think if you do those small little things, I think it'll help, you overcome that. And the thing is, we talked at the onset, we've been doing this for a long time. And so I don't often feel any jitters, but if you do feel those jitters, understand it's natural. It'll subside. The more you do it, it'll just become second hat. Is that a word? Is that a term?
Hat? Second nature?
Second nature. Something about a hat.
Hmm.
Anyway, I'm pulling from really old archaic references. But anyway, it'll become second nature. It'll be natural. It'll feel natural. You'll feel much more comfortable. You'll be able to enjoy it. And you'll really be able to, much more importantly, is deliver that message that you're there to deliver. So hopefully this has been helpful. If not, we've got other podcasts in store that really address more how to give effective presentations. This was really just kind of overcoming that first hurdle that many people face, and that is that fear of public speaking. So hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you, Devin, from the man who has given probably hundreds upon hundreds of presentations. So yeah, you definitely have some really good insights here. I like it.
All right.
All right. Well, we will talk to you next week. Let us know if you have a fear of public speaking, or if you're ready to go out and do it. If you're ready to go out and give a really good presentation, Own it. We want to hear from you.
All right.